EQUIVA had a so-called loyalty program, a classic customer card. Let's try something. That's how it looked. So
Awesome.
for everybody who can see that, it's basically a card where you use sticker points to collect when you spend certain money to collect points. And at the end, when you filled your card, you can redeem it for, I think, $20 at the time. For me, something that I'm very proud of that the team achieved that is that's not a really business KPI, but it's important to understand is that typically in a typical month, more than 80% of all our revenues are now going via our loyalty system.
Wow.
So I normally, you think, well, you're cool if you have like, I don't know, 40, 50, 60% of your revenues in that system. And we were having 80 now. I think at the end, gamification helped us, and that is a very important thing. And we didn't even think about that rationally at the beginning, but right now we're reflecting a lot on that. Helped us to, I wouldn't say to mask, but to enhance the program away from you spend money, we count it for you, and then you get something back.
All right. I believe that we are live right now. So thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are going to discuss a mobile loyalty experience for retail today. And it's really very exciting for me because this is my favorite format, I would say. It's a case study. And today we have a wonderful guest, Fritze von Berswordt, Managing Director at EQUIVA. Fritz, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, hi Eric. It was thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here and to be a part of the open loyalty story. And I'm happy and looking forward to our conversation.
I would say that you are an brilliant example of the core of our community because you are a loyalty builder. And you also want to share your experience with the others. So thank you so much.
I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. So for those of you who are still, thinking, okay, is this session worthwhile? Should I be watching it till the end? I just wanted to make a sort of like a promise that by the end of our conversation today, you will learn about the EQUIVA Friends case study. So it's going to be super practical. We are going to talk about goals and vision for the program, but we also are going to discuss the business impact and also the process of designing a mobile loyalty experience. So definitely it's worth to stay with us for the entire session. And all right, let's just jump in with a bit of background about EQUIVA. So Fritze, if you could describe in a few words, like what is EQUIVA and what is your approach to customer engagement?
Yes, it's quite simple. EQUIVA is a supplier for horse and equine sports accessories. So basically, we sell everything from horse feed and special foods for horses, as well as the equipment you need for both your horse, like reins, like your saddle, and also for the rider, like safety equipment, but also simple riding breeches. And our approach to the customer is very much and very well enshrined in our purpose, which says we bring love and happiness into the hearts of every active rider and their four-legged loved ones, basically their horses.
Awesome. Okay, so there is this emotional component that is an element of the design. It's absolutely awesome. So your program is called EQUIVA Friends. I wanted to start at the very beginning. What was the reason for actually creating the program? So what led EQUIVA to create the EQUIVA Friends program?
Yes, basically in a nutshell, EQUIVA had a so-called loyalty program, a classic customer card. Let's try something. That's how it looked. So
Awesome.
for everybody who can see that, it's basically a card where you use sticker points to collect when you spend certain money to collect points. And at the end, when you filled your card, you can redeem it for, I think, $20 at the time. And so that worked quite good for us already, but there were certain problems with it. First of all, when we started to think about EQUIVA Friends through a rebranding phase, which went really away from the typical, let's say, equestrian sports supplier to a truly emotional brand that tried to more apply or to talk to the emotional part of our customers. And then our card basically gave 4% on 500 euros, and then you start from the start. And so we thought in the beginning, how can we really load that system with emotions, which this card really doesn't have. It also has technical problems. It's basically a single channel approach. It's very hard to collect those points on the internet. And then also try to make it a bit more appealing, because you get stronger rewards if you behave in a certain way. So those were two very strong drivers for us, and so we started looking for changing that card to a Friends program that reflects our new purpose, that also evolved during the same time.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. This is an interesting route from this traditional card to a mobile experience. What were the key goals that you wanted to achieve with the app?
Yeah. As I just said, there's one component that is truly a branding component. So we wanted to create something that would work cross-channel to support the brand. And the brand was moving from a quite, it was hard to it didn't have really unique issues. Our brand looked very much like every other equine sports brand in the market. We had a good logo, but the rest was basically the same. And how could we move that into the hearts of our customers? So one of the topics were truly to say, okay, how do we find a channel that supports that change? And then obviously there's always the tough business drivers that are probably what everybody expects when you're talking about loyalty. That's an increase in customer retention. That is also the increase of the share of wallet for each customer. And we had certain customers that we wanted to especially bind, that had a specialty value for us, and we wanted to bind them early. So one of the I would say it's a bit of an experiment, was to switch from the classical you have to earn before you get something back, that we said, okay, we can very nicely identify high value customers, and how can we give them upfront a lot of recognition that we value what they're doing, and then see how they develop in worth and value later. So, and we wanted to change that from okay, you give us money, we give you something back. We want to say, you're valuable, you do cool things, so we want to give something in advance and see how we develop together. So those were basically the goals.
Awesome. So now I can see that this is, let's say, the benefit of the app, that you can you have the information quickly, so you could act on it right early on.
Yes. So that the app solves many problems. So we always try to remember for ourselves that the app is not the program. Sometimes it still happens. We say, oh, it's the Friends app. You have to download the app. But basically, it's really EQUIVA Friends as a program, as an entity, and one of the access channels is the app. Another one could be the website. But the app for a company like ours, which achieves about 88%, maybe 87% on their revenue still in brick and mortar business. Obviously, the experience in the store is important. And the app solves so many problems, including good access, gamification, emotional access, lots of pictures. That is solved. Also, obviously, it can open up opportunities that you don't have with a card, which is push messages, for example, or in-app messaging. And at the end of the day, we also use the whole project to unify our customer bases. Often in old school multi-channel companies, you have separate customer bases, and it forced us also to unify those and to have truly one view on the customer. Sounds a little bit strange in 2023 when we did it and evolved it, but actually there's still a lot of companies out there that haven't actually a good view on the customers.
Absolutely. I would be really like, if you could do that in 2023, I would look at it as a success story, because as you said, like especially with big companies with multiple channels, like aligning everything is usually like a longer and more complex process. So congratulations on actually, being successful with aligning everything and being able to provide this single unified customer experience.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask you about your key customers, just for everyone who is listening. There is obviously this great case study on the website. I will definitely link it in the description of the episode. But if you could also, like, before we go into some mechanics and so on, if you could briefly, like, describe the key customers who also represent the members of the EQUIVA Friends program.
Yes. Key customers are basically everybody who actively horse rides. That's key customers. Customers are everybody who sometimes is interested in riding and needs some piece of equipment for riding or horses, or actually also the mere having horses at home. So sometimes you don't ride, but you still have a horse. So, but our if you look at it as a value pyramid, you can say on the top of that pyramid is somebody who owns at least one horse and is actively riding, meaning more than 3-4 times a week. So they usually need the whole assortment, from feed for the horse, equipment for the horse, maybe even if you have your own piece of meadow where you have the horses, or field where you need to put some fencing around it. We also supply that. And at the end, obviously, you want to be dressed either functionally or cool. And also that is what those customers need most. Just to give you a feeling, on average, those customers spend about 2,000 euros on their hobby without things like doctors or guys, how do you call those? Actually, blacksmiths, the guys who make the horseshoes. So just in our assortments, they spend about 2,000 euros a year for their passion. And then it goes down from there. So if you take the horse out of the equation, if you say it's just active riders, that are usually people who share a horse with somebody else, then it's still very valuable to us. And then it goes down a little bit more. That's typically kids that rides once a week, or people like I used to be 3-4 years ago that are simply riding during the holidays, for example, because their daughter wants to horse ride. And so you, as a dad, you have to go with her, right, and you buy, I don't know, once a helmet in 5 years, something like that. So those are our key customer classes. Maybe some demographics. They are 80% women. That is important also on how we address emotionality, or have to weigh between very formal, maybe more abstract things like information, or simply working with the heart. Because we learned, we're all horse riders, but we learned girls are a bit more emotional, and they work more with their hearts and their emotions than maybe their heads, especially in that very passionate hobby and lifestyle. And we love that, and we love them for that. So we try to tap into that world.
Great. So it actually represents the currency that is within the loyalty program, because it's hearts, right?
Yes, very much. Yeah, yeah. That's what we did. We didn't call it coins. We started with unicoins from unicorns. We had all loads of ideas which we thought very brainy, very cool. But at the end, some of our ladies in marketing just said, "Why don't we call it hearts?" I said, like, yeah. Man, that's so easy. There you go.
Sure. I mean, those great ideas probably work this way, that, once you hear it or somebody speaks it aloud, then it sounds obvious. But it's not that easy actually to figure out how to design it properly. So again, like, this is thank you for sharing this for our listeners. It's definitely going to be really inspiring how, like, if you know your customers well, it might really translate into the app design, even on the level of the naming for the points.
Yeah, that's very important. I think that's a key aspect, actually.
Awesome. So thank you for presenting the customers. It's going to be, from now on, probably, we will have more, it's going to be clearer if we go into other details. So I also wanted, you've mentioned KPIs already, and you wanted to ask about the kind of behavior that you wanted to encourage with this digital in-app experience?
Yeah. If you look at that, there were a couple of dimensions of behavior that we wanted to change a bit, and especially from a retailer's point of view, at the end, it's quite economic. So first of all, if you know there's 2,000 euros behind every person that walks into your store and signals, yes, I do have a horse, then obviously you ask yourself, if that is the case, why do you spend not, let's say, at least half of that, which is also already quite a good share of wallet, with our company? And at the time we started, that wasn't the case. And obviously, we are in a market, at least in Germany and Austria, where we're not alone. We are also not the market leader. We are a classic attacker. And we wanted to change that, and we wanted also by loyalty, but obviously as a good retailer, you have to change many things, also your assortment and the experience in store. We wanted to change that so that the customers had, let's say, fewer reasons to buy somewhere else. And that is one of the more rational reasons. We have a couple of competitors that actually had, at the time, higher rebates in certain levels of spending. I said in the beginning, we had about 4% on this sticky point cards. And we understood, okay, if somebody is already locked in their systems and they're buying, let's say, their food with us, but maybe their non-food, their equipment with others, because they're already locked in a 10% rebate loyalty system, then it's hard to get them out of there. So we said, okay, we had to change that. We had to get to show them good incentives that they change that behavior and said, okay, I'm already here. I'm already buying my horse feed here. Why should I have a reason to go to our competitors? So that retention was really important. And then we also included some features that is not so much a loyalty feature, but it's a promotional feature, but we bundled up in the app. That's coupons, where we said we had a regular, learned a lot, by the way, regular high incentive coupons, where we hoped that at least in the store, the people our customers would look at that and would say, okay, I'll also add that to my cart. So basically increasing the number of items in the cart and also the cart value. Classical retention. It's all intertwined, obviously. And then there is this last point that is not so much linked to the competitors, but to standard behavior. In the beginning, we didn't do anything with customers that were basically, let's say, loitering in our food department. And once you're in that food department and looking at big bags of oats, for example, which is basically horse feed, you know in this moment that person is in average value worth 2,000 euros a year. And we didn't really ever do something with that. And we wanted to make sure that those people spend truly most or all of their money with us. And there was also one goal, one behavior we wanted to change, because often they simply took their lowest value feed and then they left. And we wanted to change that and give them reasons to say, hey, why do I walk past all those great other equipments? Why don't I stop and drop something into my cart? That I would say then are the most relevant topics and behaviors we wanted to change. We wanted to have them also interacting without buying. That's also a topic for brick and mortar companies, obviously. We wanted to see if we find a way how we can make them interact with the brand, even if they're not currently in the store. Mm-hmm. And last not least, and that's an important one for the new loyalty system, also the app, is cross-channel behavior. Just to give you a feeling, we have about 35%, I think, of all revenues in our industry, in our branch, in equine and equipment, including food, by the way, for me surprising at the time, in the internet. Mm-hmm. But our company was very weak there. We had about 7 to 8% of our revenues in our online store. Mm-hmm. So we knew that customers that had, for some reason, a motive to change their channel, to switch their channel from brick and mortar to online, we would lose many of those to our competitors. So we wanted to integrate basically our e-commerce shop system into the loyalty program, which wasn't possible with sticky notes, but also into the app. So you had the app open, and right there you also had the store, which is basically, no frills, you think, but for us it was really a big step. We didn't have that before.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, this is a huge step, because like on the surface, of course, like every brand, presents itself as everything is like fully aligned, but in my experience at least, it's still like a process. So a lot of brands are going through that. So, I only see EQUIVA as a definitely like a success case study, and something like, inspiring for the community. So that's for sure. Thank you for explaining those behaviors. We are going to discuss it further when we go through gamification. But I wanted to ask you about the business impact for a lot of our members of our audience. Is also this kind of like a component that makes or breaks a decision about like implementing a loyalty program. So I wanted to ask you, what was the impact that EQUIVA Friends program had on customer engagement and sales?
Yeah. Maybe said before that is many things of our business model changed. So it's sometimes hard to attribute a change in a KPI to just one driver, like the loyalty program. But there are certain topics where we were pretty certain that is a result of our loyalty program, the new and novel loyalty program. So the first, that is for me something that I'm very proud of, that the team achieved, that is that's not a really business KPI, but it's important to understand, is that typically in a typical month, more than 80% of all our revenues are now going via our loyalty system. Wow. So I normally, you think, well, you're cool if you have like, I don't know, 40, 50, 60% of your revenues in that system. And we were having 80 now. So that is really nice, and is a really obviously important KPI as a basis to work from there, because if they're not in the system, the system will not have an impact. Very simple. So and I'm extremely proud for the team that they achieved that, and that is basically a quality of the system itself, but also obviously of the people, let's say the frontline workers, that always try to have the people understand the value of the system and then basically install the app and so on. So then we were also looking at the value per customer. And since we started the system basically in mid-23, the value per customer, or no, not the value, that's not really correct, but the revenue per customer per year, that is the correct KPI, grew by 30%. And that is quite dramatic for a company, and also a market that seems to be saturated. And basically, it's not KI and not AI or something where you say, okay, that's a huge growth factor in itself. So that's also a huge impact on our business. Now you could say, okay, there's also some assortments added and things change in other business parts, but there was something that at least correlated in time, and we feel quite confident that some or a major driver is also that. Actually, we also increased the number of visits per customer per year by about 21%. That's also a lot for a brick and mortar company. That's only the brick and mortar visits. That's not the cross-channel visits. That's a different figure. I don't have that with me, but that is also an interesting one, but I don't have that with me. So those are two very important KPIs, because as everybody know who might be watching this, to have a customer that is already in your portfolio, to leverage that value, that one customer, is always a lot easier, cheaper, and more valuable than trying to get a new one. So that is basically that. Absolutely. We changed also, and there's a loyalty, I think, is also very important. The share of those customers that are basically, we call them max share of wallet. They have more than 50% of their total share of wallet those 2,000 euros with us. And we changed that also by about 13-14%. And that's quite a lot for us, because it's very hard to get somebody to spend all their money with one shop, because it's some competition out there. So those are some of the figures. Again, it's hard for me to say, because of that loyalty program, bam, everything's attributed to that, because we did some other stuff. But I think if you would ask me, would I do the invest again? I would say definitely. For many reasons, those are ones. Brand is another one, but those business figures are definitely some that are important for us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations on the result. Like at first, when you've mentioned 80% of people like going through the loyalty experience, it was just instantly wow, because as you've said, like the figures, even if you have 60%, sometimes it's a very good number, but here we are definitely talking about the majority of customers.
Yeah, that is there's something that everybody who thinks about that has to differentiate. You have the number of, let's say, transactions that are on the system, and you have the value. The 80% is the value, but the issue is mostly the better, more loyal customer to begin with go into those systems. The number of customers is usually in a store that has about, let's say, 82% of their value on the system, have about 75% of all transactions on the system, because the drive-by buyers that just buy some present for their kids, they usually don't join the program, so they're super low. So you have always some kind of skewed correlation between a number of customers and value on the system. So we look at value. That's a bit more important to us, because it's important for us to have the high value customers on the system.
Absolutely. And I believe that from this point of view, definitely, if someone is downloading the application and they are joining the program, this is a strong signal that, okay, I'm thinking about interacting or being a customer in the long term.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good signal for the whole initiative. And, congrats, because as you've said, it's also definitely a great work on behalf of the team in the store. To be honest, I probably recognize only 2 brands where the staff at the physical location, they actually informed me that there is a loyalty program and I could join it. Very often, I need to find it myself. If I don't, I can't join.
Yeah.
Right. I believe that you've mentioned the KPIs already. So if we could discuss briefly the process of designing a mobile loyalty experience. Definitely, a lot of people in our community are, thinking about designing an app and then using the application in their business. So if you could briefly just walk us through the process of designing the application. It's cool because the starting point was the physical, the cardboard card with the stickers. So if you could tell us what was the process of this digital transformation looking like.
Yeah, there were basically 3 components of getting that to run, and you have to give me a hint what you think is most interesting. But the first one obviously is customer data. So we did collect customer data with that punch card or with that sticker card. But we had store data, we had online data from the old shop system, and we had data from our newsletter systems, and we had to build a combined user base, which we did via a CDP system that we had to build parallelly. Extremely important for getting the app running and getting basically a single point of truth for customer data, authentication, and also login and everything. Then we had obviously the front end, which is the app itself, and then we did that in I think today a quite normal, agile way to do that. We thought a bit, first of all, about what do we want to achieve, the branding aspect, which would have consequences for our UX a bit, and obviously also the features we wanted, and we focused on from the whole backlog of different features that we could dream up, we focus obviously on a very simple, no frills way how to collect hearts and basically understand or make understandable for the customers how to move up in steps. Then all that was done with a third component, the loyalty system itself, where we used Open Loyalty, which basically provided with an out-of-the-box system that worked right away. We just had to connect to it via the API, and we could very simply use all those features that were provided there, and we didn't have to invent them for ourselves yet let alone develop them ourselves. We built with a very small team a small UX click dummy for the front end as you do it today, and I think it was in Figma if I understand correctly. It was really cool because people could understand how does it really look and feel, and from there on we worked with a small agency that helped us to implement it in classic sprint in a sprint system where we used about. I think we were done in about 3 months from start first line of code to deployment of the MVP. We used React Native. That was a technical decision. We didn't want to use Swift, Kotlin, or those fully native technologies because it would be too expensive. We are not a super big company, so we didn't want the complexity. So React Native was a great framework for us. And they were quite good for us. So that was basically the process, customer base, back-end systems, a front end with all the logic and the intelligence, basically rented out as a service, I think you call it. So we didn't have to think about that too much.
Perfect. And, again, congratulations, because 3 months, it still shows that, it needed to be really well designed. I believe that there were clear goals for the MVP, and because of that, you were able to do that in just 3 months, actually.
Yeah, and that is basically also that was important to us to truly do it agile. The picture of the guy starting with a skateboard and ending with a Ferrari, and not thinking about a Ferrari and taking 5 years to not develop it, and we really started very small, and certain aspects that we thought might be interesting but wouldn't be a game changer or wouldn't be so important to also get all those people in the brick and mortar stores on board. Those came later in iterations. Yeah.
So what was the key aspect of the MVP? I mean, what was the kind of behavior change that you wanted, that you designed for the MVP? What was the crucial part?
Yeah. The first part obviously is basics. I mean, it's kind of boring, but you have to be able to log on. It has to be really simple. You have to understand as customer, okay, they don't grab all our data, so it's simple. They only ask for username and password and some key data. That's obviously that if I wanted to be contacted, then they need that. Then we had in the beginning, that's dead now, we had a migration process. So if you had a customer number, which was basically written with a ball pen on the back of this card that I showed you earlier, so we needed to migrate those accounts, and we asked the customer to punch in their old customer numbers so we could associate the new accounts with that old history also.
Perfect. So actually card holders were able to basically change the card into the app themselves. They would
exactly. What we didn't do, we didn't try to get the punch cards or the little stickers into the app. That was a reflex in the beginning that we said, okay, we have to have the same methods, but we thought, no, kill all that, kill all history. But it was important that we were also able to associate the old customer history, old transaction history, which were stored in our data, to the new customer data platform. And so we needed to have that link between the old card and the new one. And before we started to try to do that all, basically after the whole implementation, we thought, okay, let's try to make the user part of that process, and that worked quite good for about maybe 70% of the account. Some people didn't do it. Some people punched in the wrong numbers, so there were errors. But we could fix that later, and that was quite good. But then, of course, the experience of seeing an app that for somehow appealed to my lifestyle, to my way how I see the world, a bit playful, a bit female, so not so male and rational, but a bit, soft form, soft colors. I mean, we are purple ourselves in our brand color, so that was quite easy. And at the end, we wanted to see that if you scanned your code and got your hearts rewarded, there needed to be some instant reward, some animation with hearts flowing over the screen. So our customers, some of them are very young, the girls, they really loved that. Right. And that was what we wanted to have first. And then there would be obviously some confirmation of how good it is that you buy something for your loved animal and that you invest in that great lifestyle. So we also wanted to make sure that they understood, I'm collecting more hearts brings me higher in our tiers, and so I'll be a friend, then I will be a best friend, and then at the end I'm a soulmate, which is basically the highest you can get with us. And so we needed to show them congratulations. There was a pushy involved, so they would be informed via several channels. That was basically the MVP. Super no frills. So there's a QR code. Obviously, we had to scan that thing. There was some feedback. There was a login sequence. Basically, like recall it correctly, that was it. And then we started with gamification, with customer referral, with coupons, with the integration of the shop in iterations after that, quite quickly actually for the first features. But we said better to launch, learn something, get punched in the nose by your customers, because obviously there were bugs in that in that system, but get punched in a small customer base. Get bad reviews on Apple and the Play Store when you have only 1,000 customers and not a big six-figure number there.
Definitely, this is a voice of reason. So thank you for sharing that with the audience, because this is counterintuitive. Very often we would like to, just wait for for longer, right? And then just show something that is bigger. But in fact, the sooner you start, the quicker you get the feedback, and actually the whole experience is more positive, both for you and the users.
Yes. And then every agile coach will tell us now, wow, that's a no-brainer, and they're totally right. But we are an old company, and we have a very let's say traditional IT, which focused classically on ERP systems and legacy systems. And for them, that was also a learning curve that they really were really happy to also walk with together with the rest of the team. So that was a really great experience for all of them.
Awesome. And it's great that you have this coherent view of all the departments within the company, because it's not just like designing the program for the sake of program, but it's rather a component aligning the whole, right? The team and the processes.
It helped a lot. It helped a lot. Not to put the whole thing in a silo, make it the brain and love child of one or two managers, and then have them. Then often you get the situations you experienced where you said, I come to the store and I know somewhere there's some loyalty because somebody get their little smiley face on their report card, their manager report card, but the others don't really pull on the same rope there. And so that I think that's very important to make it a cross department, full company effort, and make it part of the DNA. And I think that worked quite good for us.
Absolutely. And also because you've mentioned that it took only 3 months. So I would say that for a company that is not, let's say, an agile IT company, that's a huge success, because definitely there is this learning curve that you've mentioned.
Yeah, we're happy with that.
I wanted to, because if I understood correctly, all those users who have the traditional cardboard card with the stickers on, once they log in, the stickers are reflected in the points in the app. So if I'm close to getting the whole thing, or what was this?
No, we were doing. We were thinking about that. How can we, let's say, preserve the old stickers in the cart, and then we said, okay, that's technically not MVP. That's quite problematic, and we did it really pragmatic. We just said normally you had to fill whole your cart to get those 20 euros refund, and we said everybody who installs the app and shows us that they have registered with the app and show us also the card will get, no matter how full it is, if they're already entitled, will get that refund which they already collected. And we just, we made one cut with one transaction. We just put it on the next possible transaction or the receipt. And then they were really happy with that. And so there's a total non-tech solution.
Yes.
And maybe it's strange because we thought a lot about that. How can we transfer the old points in the new system? And thank God we didn't do it. Thank God we just said, make it easy for the customer, make it easy for the professional and the frontline workers at the cashier, the cash system or cash register. And that was really, I'm happy that we did that. It worked good for us.
So I believe that this is one of the reasons why right now you have over 80% of people who have joined the program, because it was, first of all, easy, and also it was an incentive, because now I imagine that if I had only one sticker and then I can just use the app and I'm in this, let's say, better position.
Yeah, and with the app, obviously you get, and we were very more than with the stickers. In the stickers, the customers that really made the effort to calculate, okay, how many stickers, how much do I have to spend, and how much percent is that? Yeah. There was a bit of strength, also a weakness of the old card. You never knew how much discount you got. 4%. That's not a lot. And with the new app or the Friends system, we started to be more aggressive about what you could actually save if you're in the soulmate stage, and that was obviously higher. And we communicated that, so the incentive was also, okay, I take my old card, I don't lose anything, I collect what I have on it. And then I'm entitled more and more to get a lot more. And so that seemed to work for us.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for explaining the process. Very, very smart design, I would say. So if you could reflect on the biggest challenges in making the app, what was it in your opinion? What was the biggest challenge in the process?
I thought about that one a lot. And to tell you the truth, I think most of the challenges that we experienced and the longest discussions were not so much about the users, but were about our own colleagues. How would they react to having, for example, the fact that with the card, with the old card, the process would be, your customer walked into your store, you would ask them, hey, would you like to join our EQUIVA card? And they would say, oh, yes. And then you would together fill out a form with pen and paper, and the customer would be associated to your store. So it would be your customer. With an app that you can download wherever you are, in the bathtub, on the couch, and without any transaction, this customer would be owned by nobody. Yeah. And those were more the tougher and longer discussions, and not so much what can we do for the customers? Because for the customers, we thought, okay, we give them a better incentive. We give them a way cooler device, the app, instead of a card. We did have real big barriers on that one, because we came from a very analog system, very old school system, to a very modern and also fun to use system. So we did reflect on, obviously, UX. We did reflect on design. We did reflect on, as I already said, on the MVP. What should be in first? Simplicity. But we didn't experience in that early phase, except typical technical bugs that obviously gave us some flame wars. We didn't face any resistance there. That worked quite good for us. We were lucky, maybe.
Well, I would say that, probably the process was well put and was, well set. So you actually took under consideration the most important parts, and maybe this is why actually it all went really smooth. So, once again, it's really great that you're sharing this experience, because that's the way to do it. So it's going to be really inspiring for the community. You've mentioned gamification, you've mentioned tiers. So now if we could focus on this component, obviously gamification is a huge trend right now in loyalty. So I wanted to ask you about the reason, or and also a bit of maybe the particular elements that gamify the experience that you decided to implement into the EQUIVA Friends program?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one, because when we started, we thought without gamification, it is really boring, and we need certain gamification trends, and everybody would love that, and they would let's say try to hunt for achievements and everything all the time. I think at the end, gamification helped us, and that is a very important thing, and we didn't even think about that rationally at the beginning, but right now we're reflecting a lot on that. Helped us to, I won't say to mask, but to enhance the program away from you spend money, we count it for you, and then you get something back. And many of our competitors and or other retailers say, okay, spend X and receive Y. And gamification puts I think an authentic frame or code around that, and says, hey, you collect hearts, you don't spend euros. Well, yeah, you get 2 hearts for €1, but you collect hearts. That's what you do. And by adding other ways than simply spending money to collect those hearts, for example, for referring a customer, for example, for getting an achievement, basically buying certain amounts from certain assortments that are associated to loving a horse truly. We also detached hearts, points, whatever, from spending money directly. I think that helps our customers to understand it's not just buying, selling, giving, taking. It's about having an experience together. I obviously I'm a gamer, I must admit. So I thought, okay, if I can get some challenges and some achievements, everybody will do nothing but think whole their day on achievements. That's not the case. But the whole system, if it's put well together or in a certain way, I think it helps to give it an authentic, non-economic, non-monetary feeling. And that was important because we wanted to get out of rationality, out of economics, out of retail. We wanted to go into friend, love, and hearts. So, and that helped a lot to give that authentication.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely understand that. You've mentioned at the very beginning that one of the reasons for implementing the new program was actually to make this emotional connection with the brand. So now I understand that also using gamification and gamifying the experience, it allows you to go beyond the transaction. Yes. So it's obviously, as a customer, I'm going to be looking for, let's say, the best price I can get on the product, but still this price is a component. So it's not the whole experience or interaction with the brand.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. So you've mentioned a bit tiers, and you've mentioned that you are a gamer. So I wanted to ask you about those elements that worked best. Something that you've seen that, wow, this mechanics seems to be really effective. What kind of mechanics would you see here?
Yeah. It is really hard to say because you have certain elements of your gamification, and it's very hard to, we are not capable right now to make the analytics to say, okay, a customer that has used those 2 elements shows better KPIs in whatever outcome. But one is quite impressive. That is, we used an achievement. We use the achievements quite a lot. They're little sweet stickers you can collect, but if you collect them, you can go through certain stages from a white to silver to gold, which reflects the colors of the trophies you get when you win a riding tournament. White is the bronze, I think, in Olympics, and a silver is silver and gold is gold. And we did one which we call the super achievement, which we call the chef. So the chef is the guy who cooks, obviously. And as I said somewhere in the beginning, well, we have this very attractive group of customers that are basically caring for a horse because they spend a lot of money on their lifestyle. And with the chef, we implemented an achievement where you would incentivize a potential behavior. You say if you buy certain feed products in big bags, it's like a definite signal that you own a horse. And we said, okay, if you do that for a very small amount of money, 50 euros, something around there, so that would never be enough to get in typical tiers. You would earn the chef, because we said, okay, you care for a horse. Obviously for us was, hey, you're high potential. And they would be earning so many hearts with this first achievement that they would jump with this one purchase directly into the first tier, which would give them 5% on all non-food purchases. And that was extremely widely used. And then obviously we had them once in this higher tier, and we had to keep them there then, because hearts, as in friendship, if you don't foster them, they will break. and tears, friendships, if you don't foster them and care for them, they will break. So they earned something, and maybe you know or not, I don't know, the psychological effect that it's for people usually harder to lose something than to work for something to win. So we put something there to be lost, and that worked really nice for us. And but it's not very typical to do that, because again, usually retailers say, well, before I give something to you, I need some revenues. And we said, no, you're high potential. You get a present first. And it worked nice for us. So I was happy with that. So nice. I shouldn't share it here, but
I really appreciate that you're sharing this. I'm pretty sure that everyone who is watching will also see the value in that. And I really appreciate the smart and elegant design here, where you can identify those high potential customers and offer them something right away. And as you said, like, there is this element of you need to be an engaged member in order to keep the benefits, which is also, I think, very fair when it comes to this sort of a relationship. So everything seems really really interesting. It's also cool that you are not afraid to use this loss aversion, because very often programs tend to be only on the positive side, and for some reason it becomes boring. But if you have this element like, okay, I need to be properly engaged in order to balance it out, suddenly emotionally we tend to be more invested.
That's what we are playing at exactly, yeah. And we to tell you the truth, you never know how a customer actually thinks about that, but we remind them quite often with push messages and everything. So hopefully we are a bit in their relevant set all the time. That's our goal, at least.
Awesome. I think that we can go towards this sort of like lessons learned, and what worked, what didn't. I'm really happy that we can discuss it with you, because you are the, as I've mentioned at the very beginning, loyalty builder and practitioner. So in your opinion, what would be the overall, like, the biggest win for implementing the digital application and going to that?
I think if you take the whole package from having a loyalty system that is so attractive that people are willing to, let's say, waste space on their smartphone, and maybe waste space also in their attention span for it, and to allow us on their smartphone and in their lives with that, because that is the important in itself, because it gives us access to, again, their brains twice a week, maybe 3 times a week through push messages, and allow us to be in a not constant, because we don't want to be too pushy, too present, but in a continuous presence in their minds and lives, hopefully in their lifestyles with their horses. So I think the closeness, both emotionally or basically quantitative with contacts we have, if you want to reduce this to that, I think that is a very valuable win that we think we can also, with a good and state of mind, associate to some of the KPIs that had some really, for us, really satisfactory and great developments there. So customer closeness. There's another word, but I don't get it right now in English. But so moving closer to the customers, being more intimate. That's the word, customer intimacy. Sorry, that is basically a big win. And then obviously the economic side. I think we can associate quite a bit on those upsides and our KPIs on the system. And I think that is something I would do the invest again, because sometimes there's a discussion out there. Well, loyalty programs, there's some studies that say, okay, you spend money, but basically if you break even, you're cool, but there's no upside. I would say if we would have been sticking with the old card, there wouldn't have been such an upside. And I think there's a good, not equilibrium, but like a return on invest on that. So as a business guy, I would say there's a positive and nice return on invest, but there's also an emotional component, accessibility and intimacy that we value also as retailers and partners for the lifestyle of our customers.
Okay. And you've mentioned the win. What would be the unexpected challenges or maybe even features? Because you've mentioned that the whole process of implementing the program went incredibly smooth, but perhaps there were some features that you wanted to, you've implemented, but then it turned out that they are not as efficient, or is there anything that you would consider as sort of like a challenge and something that should have been changed?
Yeah. For us, there were basically two. One were the class, or one example where every, again, agile coach would say, told you so, where we tried to be too complex. So our achievements, I was actually being the culprit on that one, tried to dream up certain mechanics on how you buy from multiple assortments in certain heights and number of transactions, and then you would move up from white, silver to gold. And basically, technologically, even with a great system that we used there, it was a mess to implement, and basically we really at the end didn't. And I think customers also didn't get it. So I think they love the achievements because we see quite a lot of them being used and earned. So I think they like that. But the complexity, we should have just skipped that, and basically simple and more achievements would probably from the start have been better. And we allocated quite a lot of brain power and maybe also euros on making that idea of the managing director a reality, and he should have stopped earlier, being me. So that is one issue where I just say simplify. It's usually a good thing. And the second one is not so cool. That is basically when you start very simple and you basically drill into yourself and your team all the time, stop thinking from the extremes, from the fringe cases, and just take the basic cases, then you are with a basically stable system online super early. We were. But you also have some open gates for fraud, for example. And, take the simple things. Well, I own a horse, but I'm living in I think it's called livery, so a stable where also my best friends are. So I can now think everybody collects hearts, or maybe I take a screenshot of the QR code of my personal QR code, and I just allocate it to everybody else, and they use the screenshot too, and everybody collects hearts on my account, and basically you're very quickly a lot of soulmates. Well, one soulmate, but many soulmates, being one personality. So there you have to think about how to do that. Looking backwards, obviously we had a lot of discussions. I'm also responsible for finances, so I'm thinking about, wow, that's not so cool, and compliance also not so good. At the end, I'm happy we did it anyways, because the risk and the true damage to the company was basically small. Because at the end, I would say if somebody goes through so much trouble to try to benefit and then to buy from us, I say, thank you. It's basically maybe also a nice way to say thank you to us. But at the end, we started, and we're not finished yet, to try to at least stop the very simple ways of exploiting those simple features that you sometimes have to decide for if you go full MVP, full agile. But obviously, there's something between, oh no, how can they do that? And then again, come nice that they think so much about us to try to break our system. So that was okay.
That's definitely, a cool way to look at that. That somebody is like making a lot of effort in order to collect as many hearts as possible, right? So in a way, they are this like top percentile of the most loyal customers.
Yeah. There was one where we actually said, okay, quite early actually, where we said, okay, we have to intervene. Somebody was so nice and put their customer number up on the Apple App Store. Said, you can use my customer number. And we said, okay, that's really not possible anymore. And then we stopped that. And now we have like the family is allowed to use it, obviously, because sometimes daddy buys all the heavy feed for the daughter because she doesn't have a car maybe. So then they use the same code, but the whole community of delivery or the stable, we try to stop that.
Sure. I mean, this is an interesting aspect, this sort of like a social aspect of like people, let's say, referring the program to others, right? But not exploiting. So I wanted to ask you about the referrals in particular. Like, would it be a feature that is worth implementing?
Sorry, I forgot that one. We have that implemented, and we have a system that there's also basically from the system we use is basically out of the box, and it's very simple. So when you refer somebody and they actually do their first purchase, that's important. Both of them, both the referrer and the referee, get some hearts, quite a lot actually, and it works quite good for us. I think I don't have the figure by heart, but I think we are in low 5-figure digits right now. So I don't know, somewhere about 12,000 or a bit more referred customers. And if you think how much you usually would in a retail world, especially if it's specialty, it's not groceries, invest into a new customer, then that's quite a lot of money. And so thank you that you reminded me. That's a feature I simply forgot, but it's also relevant for us.
I wanted to, because referrals, definitely, this is quite an interesting component, especially for brands like EQUIVA, where the customer experience is on such a level that you would like to recommend it to others. And then, if you appreciate it, if you have this emotional connection with the brand, definitely then there is this high chance of referring. And I believe that the number that you've just mentioned, it also in a way supports this hypothesis that you're actually doing providing an exceptional customer experience, because like people refer one to another.
Yeah, that I also perceive it as a good sign. I would love to have more,
Sure.
But then again, we have a small team also. We were a bit lazy in promoting that. We did it a couple of times where we had referral weeks, things like that. But I think we still have to find the silver bullet how to push that even more, because as you said, we are in a very tight knitted community, and it's basically a no-brainer to say, okay, why don't you do that? And I think we could probably do better on that one. So we have to put some more effort in that.
Sure, there's always room for improvements.
Oh yeah,
like no worries here. It's like a constant process.
Very much.
Obviously, me being me and representing the technology side, I wanted to ask you also about the role of this API first loyalty engine. So in what way was it important or in which way did it help you implement and go live with the program?
Yeah, that's an important question. Was also a discussion we had. It was actually a quick one, because there's basically two aspects in there, right? The first is make or buy, and then if you buy, what do you buy? Do you buy some monolithic out of the box management console super thing, or do you buy some super lean small intelligent core system which is very open to whatever you want to connect to it? And both were basically the basis for what you see at the performance we could deliver in that short time. So we wouldn't have delivered not even close the launch time, and so also the service availability to our customer without that kind of system. And I think also at the end, the cost side would have never ever been that good without a system of that architecture that you guys are offering, because well, in our case, we chose React Native as a front end. We have some zoo of back end systems. We use Lobster. I don't know. I don't want to get too technical, but as a system to manage basically some of or most of our API calls. We have different systems too, but we use that. And we use a lot of open source because I'm an open source believer, and also we are not Deutsche Bank, so we have resources that we have to manage, and so that was naturally for us, and both the service aspect to be. Yeah, for us it was sometimes it's hard to say, okay, we don't have to invent that ourselves. Somebody else has put a lot of brain into that. They did a great job. We don't have to do that. They're smarter than we in that piece of business. Let's just trust them. So that is basically make or buy, right? And then it's how to connect that thing, and basically a modern API first architecture is the way to go for us there. And it made us very quick because the API was well designed. There's always some room of improvement in all those systems, but we were extremely fast. You guys were extremely fast in supporting us whenever we touched a barrier there, and that was basically one of the ingredients for what I would think is our success in that regard.
Perfect. Great to hear that. Still like bearing in mind that everything went in 3 months. Is also a cool like proof that it was doable to put everything together in such a way that the MVP could be launched in this time. So I'm so happy that you're happy. It's an awesome, as I've mentioned before, like case study is my definitely favorite like format of actually actually any sort of experience. So that's perfect. So since we are like, ending the session slowly, I wanted to ask you about like what's next for EQUIVA. So, are there any upcoming features or any expansions to the program that you are thinking of? Like, what is it that you are planning to change in 2025?
Yeah. There's actually some stuff coming up. So there's basically 2 to 3 things that are structurally to be expanded. So obviously there's always things like add achievements, but you don't change the architecture of the system, but you change some added little trinkets to it. But there's one topic that you always think about when you have a tier-based system is some of your customers are way out there in value than others. Not the fraudsters, obviously they also look very valuable, but there's some real people owning 5 horses, things like that. They're out there and they spend a lot of money, and then sometimes the question comes up, what happens beyond soulmate? And so we have to think about how to work with those customers because they are also extremely valuable to us, especially the stores they come to. So we have to think about the super soulmate. I need a better name, but we have team members here that are better than me in dreaming up those names. And so maybe the tier levels will change a bit. Then there's something I would call multiplier features. So out in our community, there are certain personalities and people, not influencer in a social media kind of way, but in a very analog kind of way. Sometimes they are trainers with a certain amount of celebrity status. Sometimes they're basically stable owners, and we don't basically have that feature yet. There's referrals, obviously, but for a stable owner, they refer 50 customers and then have a lot of hearts. But sometimes you have to have another. It's basically like an influencer B2B, B2C thing that we're thinking about right now. So that would be a structural change that works also for our own employees, where we do have rebates for employees, and that's obviously an important thing to have them loyal to and stick to the company. And we want to integrate also those internal status to that. And then there's some necessary not bug fixes, but UX fixes right now, because sometimes the problem with MVPs is sometimes they live longer than you want.
I understand that.
And especially on how we present coupons is really not so cool, because you have to scan your customer number for your tiers and your tier-bound rebates, and then every coupon has to be scanned additionally. That is totally bananas and really not cool. So things like that also will be new features where we have to fine-tune and beautify the experience a bit.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. It also shows that it's great how it is actually aligned to customers and their special needs, like segmentation, because as you've mentioned, there are, I also understand the challenge. Once you name your tier a soulmate, how can you even get a level higher, right? So I also feel it, but it's cool to see that everything that you are planning within the program is actually based in this understanding of your customers, and also understanding their needs and the challenges that they might have. So that's absolutely smart, and it's probably the reason why EQUIVA program has been so successful. I wanted to ask you about one piece of advice. I know that it might be difficult to choose only one, but what would be the one piece of advice for retailers, thinking about launching a gamified loyalty program, perhaps in an app form? What would you share with them?
One piece, so one word. Okay, I would cheat, and I would use an adjective and a noun. So I would call it courageous simplicity. So I've seen quite a lot of those programs, not actually gaining track because they're too complex, and both within the organization. So, and then they usually fall into the silos because not everybody feels they're part of it, and simplicity helps everybody to buy in a bit easier. And also they take a long time, and maybe they're outdated before you develop the old agile versus waterfall models, or old school development. So be courageous to go to your customers with a simple system first, and think about all the fringe cases later, both in a technology way and in an economic or program way, if you want to call it. I think that would be my most, that was most valuable to us, let's say it this way. And it was hard, because you had to restrain, but I have an idea. No, but I still no. And you have to say so many times, you have to say no to make that happen. And those 3 months from writing the first line of code, I mean, it took 1 month more to start design and that, but that wouldn't have worked without the courage to be simple and to be imperfect. And I think that would be my advice.
Thank you. I mean, I feel it, and I believe that a lot of people in the audience would feel it also. That it really it takes courage to actually say no to a few ideas that you consider great, especially when you've mentioned that you're a gamer yourself. Probably coming up with those different fun, cool elements that you have tested somewhere else, and then probably you are tempted to just throw it out there. Let's test it out. But then, stopping yourself from from doing that and actually going in a, let's say the simple possible way is really it takes courage. So courageous simplicity. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I believe that this is a wrap up. Thank you so much, Fritze, for joining us and for sharing your experience. I really appreciate the way you designed the program, and also I really appreciate the way you come into the Loyalty Builders community and you actually share your experience with everyone. So you actually make it really useful for everyone. So provide the value for your business, but you also go out with the value and provide it to others. I really appreciate that. And, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us, and see you soon.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.